everyone. I know this is our first time, and we really don't usually do Saturday nights. And this is our first time doing a what to expect while RVing and while you're pregnant, I guess. So this will be talking about full-time families that are RVing, or part-time families, or weekend warriors, as you want to put it, that are heading out and adventuring for the first time on an RV. And as people start coming through and everything, I'm going to start telling you what this stream is about. Each week will be something different, so it's not always going to be the same, and be able to show everybody something different for family-wise while you're RVing and so forth. So this one's about the beginning, how Fabian and I met, and how we began the RVing life, and how we found out what would be perfect for us. So, first of all, I want to say, hey, the journey awaits. Thanks for stopping by. And I'll say hello to more as they join us. We will be on for about an hour tonight, give or take. And we'll answer any questions you may have and so forth. But what to expect for this one. So how we started full-time RV, some of the work camping gigs that we did that can work for full-time RV families. And also just for if you just want to work by yourself and so forth like that. Also, how we are adjusting to being pregnant while we're RVing. We are having our first child, if you haven't heard, and it's going to be in September, and it's going to be a baby boy. So we will talk about throughout the weeks coming forward how we transition from just a husband, wife, and a dog to having a little bundle of joy with us. And what we actually think, what we wanted to do versus first what we really need, actually, not what we wanted to do. We wanted a family, don't get me wrong. So, but it also talk about all the things that we think that we need for the baby and what we really, really don't. Because in an RV, you can only have so much weight. And as the child gets older, they're going to need more toys and different types of clothes and everything. So what do you got to do? So you got to think about the RV weight limits and so much more of our journey as we go through the weeks and discuss full-time RVing. And not just for us, but not with just me. Fabian's not here. Maybe Fabian will make a little presence once in a while, like he is in the chat. Hey, baby, I love you. But maybe we'll be able to bring on board some of the other full-time RVer families on some of the nights when they are free. So that is pretty much the introduction of what this whole entire Saturday night, what to expect when RVing type of live streams. So welcome to everybody that's joined us. I know there's a couple people that are just watching and they don't necessarily chat, but I want to say thank you for joining as well as we try this journey and so forth. Hello, Chris Sanders. and actually I think it's Colleen on his YouTube. And you're so welcome for all the help for today. I'm glad that we were able to help. And if you ever need anything, just let me know. You know my number. And then hello to the Tin Can Travelers. Yes, baby on the way. So today actually marks the 19th week of being pregnant. So we have a couple weeks to catch you up on, but that'll happen in later streams and so forth. We're not going to jam pack it, give you a whole bunch of everything at once. We'll schedule it out and so forth, and just know that it doesn't always have to be just females in these live streams joining us and so forth. It can be men as well, because I know there are some families where the man actually stays home and they actually help out in the RVing life while the wife is working and so forth. So it's not always a cookie cutter mold that everyone expects. I mean, we live in an RV. That is not cookie cutter. But we can also have other people come in and talk and so forth later on about that. But let's look at I have a little schedule thing to stay on track and everything, because I don't want to get lost, because I can get squirreled around pretty easy and so forth. Yeah. Luckily in our videos, we can edit that stuff out so you don't see me squirreling around. But yeah, so welcome to everyone. POA family and friends. Topics for tonight is how Fabian and I met and how it led to full-time RVing. Then we'll have some questions and answers. So if you have any questions and so forth, feel free to type it in the chats, and we can go from there and answer them. Or there might be somebody in the chat that can answer for you. So if you have any questions, type it in and we'll get to it. We'll also discuss why Fabian and I decided to stay full-time RVing. And then our next live stream, we'll discuss the first trimester. So the weeks 1 through 12. And planning for the next steps of having a child. So every Saturday night is our plan at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure that you save it on your schedule. So let's get going. So beginning is how Fabian and I met. So if you missed a cute little intro in the beginning, I'm just going to show that video real quick again, because it pretty much shows how Fabian and I met. So let me get that up and watch that little trailer. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that cute little trailer if you missed it from the beginning. That showed some of the fun adventures of how we started. And hello to Fordman, aka Kenneth Oakes. Thanks for joining us. But yeah, Fabian and I met on a cruise ship back in 2017, September 2nd to be exact. It was my first day on board the ship, first time ever sailing on a cruise ship as a mate, or cruising on a cruise ship, period. And Fabian had worked there 3 years prior to me arriving. So he had some experience. He was working down in the produce area. He was giving all the food to the restaurants that needed food and so forth and requested the food. So we had 2 different type of jobs. But I arrived on the ship on a Saturday, got on board, did a tour around, and then when we went to depart, they're like, hey, why don't you just go sit back and relax? Instead of just going to my room, I went down onto the pool deck. The pool deck is where the pool deck for just the crew, not for all the passengers and all that. There's a special one for the crew. So I went down there and so forth, sat there, and started to watch us depart from Honolulu, Hawaii. So a couple minutes later, this guy comes walking through. He kind of looks at me, trying to figure out who I am. Of course, I'm all in white coveralls, so you know that one. They're wicked white, so they're somebody new. And white uniforms usually means an officer on board there. So you knew it was some type of ranking on there that was higher up. And so I was sitting there. He comes over, says hi to me and so forth, and give me like little details here and there about what's going on. And we just started talking. And the sun's setting, the ship's departing from the pier. Then all of a sudden we're turning around, heading out to sea, and the stars are coming out, and the moon and everything else. I mean, it was a magical fairy tale. Won't go into too many details because a lot of people already pretty much know the story. But needless to say, That's September. We ended up meeting up, having to get to know each other. A couple months later, we decided to date. And then the official date was in like November 13th. And that's the day that he ended up departing the ship. Is the day I asked them out. How many times have you been asked out to date somebody as you are now going to be long distance and so forth? So either way, it did work out. And right before New Year's, I got to go home from the ship. So we spent about a month and a half apart. And he met me in Nashville. And we did our first like celebration time together, New Year's in Nashville, Tennessee, ringing in 2018. So fast forward, he was only supposed to be visiting for 2 weeks, and he never left. He bought a one-way ticket, and he never left me. And we decided that we wanted to see how things went, and we didn't know where we wanted to live, but I know that living at my mom's house was not really an option, and he didn't really have a place either. So we started looking at what we wanted to do. And one day in February, he brought it to my attention about van life. And I was like, living in a van, traveling, I don't know. And he was like, all right, well, just think about it. And he went off to work. That night, he was working an overnight shift. That night, I stayed up and watched all the YouTube channels galore. Like anywhere from Keep Your Daydream to Lolo Ho to like anybody you can think of. Less Drunk, More Journey, like everybody. And I was just learning. And I had notes galore. And I'm just like, this is how you do this. Okay. And when he got home from work, like 8 hours later, at 7 o'clock in the morning, I was like, let's do it. But I'm not living in a van. So, needless to say, the reason why I didn't want to live in a van, there's nothing wrong against it. It's just that I was afraid that if the van broke down, we would lose our home. So I was like, I want something that's different. And he also mentioned motorhome and all that because it was a little bit bigger. And I was like, no, I want a truck and a trailer. And that way, if the house breaks down, we still have a truck. If the truck breaks down, we still have a trailer. And that was my thought moving forward. Didn't really think about motorhomes towing cars behind, whatever. But anyways, I was like, that's what we're going to do. And a fifth wheel was way too big for us. So February, move forward into March, we buy our truck. And then in April, we buy the RV. So within a matter of 6 months of knowing each other, we now went full-time RVing. That's how that story began. How did we really figure out why we wanted to live full-time? Well, that's a little story on its own. I'll get to that in a moment. I want to say hello to the Aloha Conch. Thank you for joining us. We were just talking about Hawaii and so forth and how Fabian and I met down there. So I'm not sure if you saw that or not or heard that, but just wanted to let you all know that, yeah, we were just talking about it and your ears must have been ringing. So, like I said before, if you missed it, if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to type it in the chats and so forth, and I will get to those questions. We'll move on into why we decided to do full-time RVing and how we ended up staying full-time RVing. So, as a new RVer, everyone pretty much wants to just get in their rig and go and see all the things in the world and just go. Our season 1, which we do have playlists in our YouTube channel, and our season 1, that was us go. We went and explored. We even went to Canada, and we just left Kentucky, went up to Canada, went over to the East Coast, and started our way down. And we didn't spend much time in a lot of places, maybe a couple days here or there, and we just went. Not caring about money as much. I mean, I just got off a ship and whatever else have you, but we were just like, all right, let's just explore. Not really thinking about the budget, not really realizing that stuff can cost a lot of money. thank you for Harvest Host and Boondockers Welcome. That helped a lot with everything. And we also did have like a little portable solar panel. So that helped with when we went boondocking and so forth. But we never stayed anywhere long. So like our travel trailer charged while we were going. Eventually, we got to a point that we realized we needed to slow down. That point happened when we were on the East Coast. And we got that bad phone call. And the phone call was about Fabian's grandma. Sorry. So you get the phone call that you never want to get, that something happened and you need to get there as fast as possible. And that day, we had just left Pennsylvania and we were heading into Delaware. We got to the Boondockers Welcome. And legit, we just got there. We had broken down everything, just started eat. We're getting Jag ready to eat. And we got that phone call. And we looked at the Boondocker Welcome person. And we're just like, hey, we got to go. We're so sorry. And legit, we went overnight. Made to about South Carolina, I want to say, before we took a little break. Didn't sleep, but we just needed a break from the road. And then we just continued going down into Florida. That's when we got blessed with the first work camping job as well. So the work camping job, as most people don't know, or some people do know, is where you work somewhere, either campsite, could be Amazon, it could be the sugar beet harvest, it could be anywhere possible. There's even some harvest hosts that do work camping gigs and so forth. So it's just pretty much you're able to live on site, either rent free, or you end up paying a monthly lot fee, and you can either get it for all hours paid, or they will say you have to work so many hours, and that those hours will pay for your lot fee and so forth. So it really depends on what type of gig that you're looking for. You can volunteer at national parks. I know some RVers, they go to Yellowstone almost every summer, and they just live in an RV park, and they work at the candy store and everything. That's actually the Roads You Roam, if you really want to know, and so forth. But yeah, they do a whole bunch of work camping gigs. This one was a KOA, work camping gig. Ooh, say that 10 times fast. And we got the job, but we were not getting paid to be there. We had to work so many hours to be able to stay in that spot. We didn't have to pay for water, no electric, sewer was included. Wi-Fi was there, but it really wasn't that good, and cable. So it was our first one ever. It was a Hollywood. So it wasn't too far from where his grandma was staying in the hospital. And that actually showed us what it's like to work camp. Not saying it was the best work camping experience. There was some goods and some bads. Every job has its good and bads. But I am glad to say that even through the bads, we did not give up on work camping. We ended up getting another job soon after at Dallas Arlington KOA in Texas. So once Fabian's grandma passed away, we decided to leave Florida and head towards that job. And while we were there, it was a great time. We had a better experience than what we did down in Hollywood. And we learned a lot more. We did front desk. Well, I did front desk. Fabian did maintenance, which was the same as Hollywood. So we kind of understood the rhythm for that. But we also sometimes did housekeeping because they needed some help on that stuff. So we learned a little bit about that. And I was like, okay, cool. It helps build the resume, helps you get going and so forth. And we were there for, oh, good golly, Miss Molly, from January till about April. So about four months. And then after that, we ended up switching gears again. We liked the work camping job, but we also liked the shipping job. And we wanted to go back to sea. Around that time also, there were some things that had happened, and we wanted to see about getting our finances straight before we really wanted to start a family, because by now we've kind of gotten in the rhythm. We kind of really like each other now. It's now 2019, and we're just like, yeah, like, let's see how this goes. So we end up going out to sea, and I'm gone for the summer, and he goes and finds a shipping job and so forth. And at that point, we weren't really all about full-time RVing because we were still shipping, but we still lived in an RV. And it works. If you have a place to keep your RV, it works. We kept it at my mom's house. And so while we were gone, she took care of it and watched it to make sure nothing happened. And yeah, it worked. I'll take a little break real quick. Say hi to John Chalker. Thank you for joining us from Connecticut. And he asked a couple of questions. How are you feeling with the pregnancy? The pregnancy is going well. I haven't really had any issues. Never really had morning sickness, maybe a couple of times. And yeah, it's just normal. I haven't felt the baby. I thought I have a couple of times, but I don't know if it is. Or it's just some gas or me expanding because I'm getting big and so forth. And we'll get to that in another episode. And how is the rig? We are loving the rig. We'll get to that in a moment, because going from a 19-foot travel trailer to a 43-foot fifth wheel is a big, big change. And we'll get to why we ended up doing that eventually. And it is nice to know that you do work camp and that that you do work camp. Does your sister do work camping? I think you mentioned that before and so forth. And thank you for supporting us and watching our videos and so forth. But yeah, so we went out to sea, did a couple of things, and then eventually, when I was done with my gigs, I ended up doing 3 Navy gigs. And that's kind of unheard of for most people. 2 of which were at sea. One was gone from it was April 30th, but about May 1st. So this is back 2019, about a couple years ago. I left to go on a ship, didn't come back until July. Fabian was still working, so I went out and did another ship for a couple weeks for the Navy. I went on board a destroyer, and that was fun. And then I came back, and then Fabian was done with his gig, and that's when he proposed to me. In August 30th of 2019 is when he proposed. I lied. August 31st, 2019. 31st. That's the last day of August. And then soon after that, we did a couple weeks of traveling, and then I went over to South Korea. So our honeymoon, in a sense, was in South Korea. It was before we got married, but it was perfect for us because little did we know that 2020 was going to get crazy. Hindsight, 2020, things changed. So I'm glad that we had a chance to go to South Korea after our engagement, before our wedding, and it allowed us to have some time together in a foreign country before all this craziness happened. Somehow we got wicked lucky. I don't know how, but that's how life went for us. So we got engaged August 31st, and then we ended up getting married November. Most of that time I was overseas in South Korea. So imagine wedding planning during that. But anyway, so November 23rd is when we ended up getting married. And then we did the sugar beet harvest. We did the sugar beet harvest prior to that. Sorry. So when we came back from South Korea, we did the sugar beet harvest. This is one of the times that we realized that full-time RVing was pretty much right up the top, like, for us. It wasn't the final, like, stake down in there saying, oh, this is what you actually want to do. It was like, oh, eye-opening. You just like, oh my gosh, like, you see these families go to the sugar beet harvest for us, it was a little bit longer than normal. Usually it's about 2 to 3 weeks, give or take. And mom or dad can stay home with the kids and one can go, and then they have the opposite shift. So it's a 12-hour shift. So one parent's gone, the other parent will come, and then to the job site, and the other parent will go home. And you can make it work. Some families made it happen. They had their own little scheme that they had going on. There are some families that the significant other would stay at the campground and be like the camp host while the other one was on site working at the beet harvest. So it worked out. And we're like, holy crap. The family next to us had, I think 4 kids or something ridiculous. And you're just like, wow. And they're homeschooling all these kids, working the sugar beet harvest and doing all this stuff. You're like, this is a possibility. Now, we haven't gone back to the sugar beet harvest since then, but we met a lot of great families, a lot of great friends, and one day we will. But once we were done with the sugar beet harvest, then that's when we got married. And then after that, we ended up coming back after our little trips back to Kentucky. And Fabian was going to end up going out to sea again. And I was working on going back out to sea. So we still had that merchant mariner lifestyle in our heads. And around March, when COVID hit, my job had not, I just got done with the interview, and they were still working through the process of getting me on board. But that never happened because of COVID. And then Fabian got sent home from New Orleans. And needless to say, we're like, what do we do from now? And this is actually when it starts realizing full-time RVing is right for us. And it's all different for everybody else. I'm not saying because what works for us, it's going to work for you. But full-time RVing is when it started realizing that it's going to be a possibility. And we got a phone call about getting a job up in Washington, which, by the way, shameless plug, tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, we will be doing a premiere of our first day working at Washington at Silver Cove RV Resort. So needless to say, that video is coming out tomorrow. It just happened to be that way. It's not planned. But yeah, when we were there in Washington, we ended up learning more opportunities that can happen. The people that are next to us that been there for, I don't know, probably a year or so prior to we got it there, maybe a little less than a year, they ended up upgrading from a travel trailer to a fifth wheel. And that was one thing that we're just like, oh, maybe one day we can do this. Because fifth wheels, they're really big and homey, and it could totally work. And that's when we realized mid bunks are more for us. Because say if our family wasn't able to happen and so forth, because things happen in life, we could always use that mid bunk as a bonus room, which a lot of people say they use it for. And it would still be a home for us and big enough for us not to want to kill each other. Because after 19 feet travel trailing living, it kind of got a little crazy at times. So when we were there, our neighbors ended up getting a fifth wheel. They didn't get the mid bunk or anything, but they got a fifth wheel. But they didn't have the truck to tow it. And we're just like, how is that possible? If you ever had to go or move anywhere, you don't have the vehicle to tow it. But financially wise, they were just like, hey, we can't do both at once and so forth right now. So we'll just get the RV that we want, get it all ready, and then eventually we'll get the truck that needs to tow it. If we have to tow it, there's other people, there's companies that will move it for us, and it may cost $2,000 to $3,000 or whatever craziness, depending on where you're moving to. And you can just pay them to move it, which is still way cheaper than having a truck that you can't afford at the same time. So we're like, holy crap. If we were to stay in Washington, which we thought might have happened at that time, we got a fifth wheel, we could do the same thing that they're doing. Because Mocha, love her to death, was not going to be able to tow a fifth wheel. So we that's when it started clicking in our mind that you don't have to have the cookie cutter mode of getting a house either. Or, sorry, an RV either. This is our house. So we're just like, wow, these are the possibilities. And we can work camp somewhere for a long time, live in the RV for a while, get our finances straight, not have to have 2 loans at the same time. Because boy, was that not a fun time having two loans at the same time. Granted, we always had a pre-owned truck. We never owned a new truck. It's been pre-owned. Our second one that we now have that most of you guys know about was pre-owned prior to us, and so forth. The RVs have always been new. It happens. But my goodness gracious, that was like, that's brilliant thinking. So if you know you're going to stay somewhere for a long time, get the rig that you want or get what you want and live there, get your finances straight, and then move on to the next one so you don't have to get burdened. Needless to say, the working camping gig ended up ending. The campground that we actually worked at ended up getting sold. One second. I'm talking a lot. Usually I have Fabian here to help, but not this round. But so needless to say, I ended up getting a Navy gig anyways, and that's what we're doing right now. We're over on the East Coast in Virginia doing the Navy gig for myself, and Fabian's work camping at a KOA. So we were able to, with that financially, because of two really good jobs and knowing that we're going to stay here for a long time, because in the Navy gig is going to be a long term. It's not just a couple months. We could financially get the truck and the trailer. So that's how we ended up getting everything, making it all happen. But because of the sugar beet harvest and realizing that there's jobs out there that will hire one single work camper, or you can work different shifts to make it all happen, that you could have a family. And then knowing that if you don't have the finances, you can always try get one before the other. So if you want to have the trailer before the truck, and know that there's possibilities to be able to move the trailer to the location that you want to. Yeah, it may cost a little bit, but still a little bit cheaper than the truck that you can't afford at the time. So those are the things that led us to realizing that full-time RVing could work for us. And with COVID, that kind of pushed us in that direction. Would I like to go back out to sea sometime? Yes. Doesn't mean it's going to happen anytime soon? No. This baby inside here is not not going to let me anytime soon. So needless to say, that is that. Does anybody have any questions in the chat? Because I just pretty much decided, I pretty much just covered why we decided to stay full-time RVing. And a lot of it is because we can work camp, get our finances straight, and still be able to travel when we want to. When we're done here on the East Coast, we don't know where we're going to go next. We could be extended a little bit longer than thought, but it really depends on what happens in the future. But once we get financially set and we can travel and stay somewhere with a fifth wheel, we're not going to pick up and go like we did with the travel trailer, because it's a lot bigger and a lot harder to find places sometimes. So we'll start doing the 2 weeks probably somewhere. Maybe I'll think about 1,000 Trails membership, or depending on where we're going to go work camp at, and stay there for months on end. That way our families can still come to visit. A couple weeks ago, our families came to Virginia, and that's when they found out about the pregnancy. And the RV is big enough for all of us to come and visit together. So they have a place to stay if they need a place to stay. So that helps with the whole decision to stay full-time RVing. My goodness gracious. Okay, so lost our shipping jobs, went to work camping, and saw the possibilities. All right, so that's pretty much that part. Nobody has any questions. That's okay. That's understandable. So I'll cover a little bit other stuff. We have about 20 minutes or so left of the live stream. I don't mind ending it a little bit early if need be and everything. We just want to start this whole live stream Saturday nights. I know a lot of people are working or they have other things that they're going on Saturday nights. I know restrictions are starting to lift, so people are actually having a life. But if you decide to watch us later on, thank you and so forth for watching and learning. I would love to have some guest speakers in the future. So if you're watching and you're a full-time RVer or you're a part-time RVer, weekend warrior, and you go RVing with your family, it doesn't matter if it's a motorhome, van, a schoolie, that's cool too, fifth wheel. I'd love to have you up as a guest panel with me to discuss how you handle living in an RV for whatever time frame that you live in it, to tell other people how you manage it. Because honestly, right now, I cannot sit here and tell you what it's like to live in an RV with a child. I mean, I have an adult child. His name's Fabian. And I have a dog named Jag. But that's as close as I can get. So all I can do is talk about my experiences as the pregnancy progresses and when the little one comes and what to expect during that transition. Because I know there's some people out there that are RVing like us that don't have kids, and all of a sudden they get that little blue cross or whatever your little thing says, pregnant. You're just like, what do we do now? Do we stay full time or do we get a house and bricks? Do we do that normal lifestyle that everybody says that we have to live? And the answer is it's up to you, but you don't have to. And Fabian says he is not a child. Yes, you are. You're a man child. All right, so I had a question in the chats. Are you thinking about boondocking it across the country? So for the fifth wheeler, yes, we are. So our goal right now is to get financially straight. So we don't have any solar panels just yet. We still have the Predator 3500 generator that we used with our first RV. We still have that with us. And it won't be able to do like both the ACs at the same time. And we still have to conserve some stuff, and we have to like dog bone it so that it will work, because this is a 50 amp camper. And I think there's a 30 amp plug for it, if I remember correctly. Fabian, if you heard me, feel free to type it in the chat if I was wrong. I don't mind being wrong. But either way, so we might have to dog bone it down so it works into that generator, so we can still run some of the stuff and not have our batteries run dead. We do have 2 batteries on board right now. We do want to upgrade to more than 2 batteries, but since we're going to be living at the campground for at least till the end of this year, if not longer, we don't find the need of getting additional batteries at this time. Let's just pay off the loans that we have and go from there. But yes, boondocking, totally. And we want to talk to the dry campers. The dry campers, I know, are pretty booked solid for putting solar on top of RVers, rigs, and all that stuff. But we'd love to talk to them sometime in the future, see what the pricing is for them to install it for us. I know Fabian can probably do it. However, I know that the dry campers have a better system and probably know how to hide things better, like the batteries and stuff like that, that maybe Fabian can sit there and watch and see and so forth. But I have a feeling they would be able to do it a lot quicker and a lot easier than we will, just trying to figure it out. So that hopefully will work with that. For the batteries, we may go expensive. We may get the Battleborn. The kind of put it in and forget it, rather than, I think, the water batteries. I think lithium doesn't have water cells in it, or does it? See, this is the part that I'm not really good at. But Fabian can answer. But he said 4 should be good for batteries, but I think we still want to do the Battleborn because, one, batteries can weigh a lot, and the Battleborn batteries can actually last longer and weigh less than the other type of batteries that there are out there. Now, there's a wet cell, and there's another one. But anyways, that's that. And if we have solar and we still have that generator and so forth, I think we're pretty good. We do have a residential fridge in our RV. That's the only downside that we found with this RV. because we're used to having a propane and electric in our first one. And it worked great while we were boondocking because we could just put it on the gas and it runs off the propane and it conserves the battery. Yeah, it conserves the battery. Whereas this one just runs off the battery and it has like a converter and everything else. But you know what? If that's the biggest concern, we'll just get more batteries later on. Still conserve our batteries when we're boondocking, and we'll be okay. So, or get enough solar panel and you'll never have to worry about it. But then that also adds weight to the camper. So that's another thing that you have to think about is weight to the camper, which, Mom, I see you in the chat. I see you there. Her and I were talking the other day. She was like, oh, I found this cute little thing. It's so cute. I want to get to their baby. But the baby won't need it till it's like 2 or 3 years old. And I'm just like, I love you, Mom, and everything. But weight. Not just weight on buying it, but also weight in an RV. 2 different ways. If the kid is going to use it later on in life, let's purchase it then. 1, it may be cheaper, or 2, you may find something even better. But yeah, we don't want to carry around that extra weight when we don't actually need it at that time. So, yes. And then my mom asked a great question. Do you expect your mom to get a camper? Well, Mom, that's up to you and Matt's. If you want to get a camper, feel free to get a camper. I'm not going to hold you back. Just don't get that one that you showed me the other day that you don't even, with the roof issues and you don't even, it has leaks. I don't care how cheap it is. If there's a leak somewhere, do not buy it. You don't know what mold is behind those walls. No. I love you, but no. All right. And then John has a question for Fabian. You might have to tell Fabian he might have to get some easy starts put on the air conditioner so that so you can use your generator. So I know that our generator is good enough for 1 AC because we used it in the other camper that we had. So we know it works for that. And I think depending on the temperature and stuff like that, I think it lasted for about 6 hours, give or take, for running the AC before the gas ran out in the generator. So there's a lot of different aspects to it, like where you're at, the humidity, how hot it is that day. Is there any shade? How often is your AC turning on and off? I mean, there's so many different situations that can change how long your generator lasts for. But I think it lasted for about 6 hours that day, if I remember correctly. And we were in Canada. So anybody else have any more questions? And thank you, Mom, for joining us and so forth. And Fabian didn't correct me really on anything, so I feel really good. He is also working right now. So he might have not heard everything if he's busy work camping. So at this KOA, he is doing the housekeeping side this time around. He usually does maintenance, but this time he is helping out housekeeping and he's cleaning bathrooms and everything. We have a full house this weekend. They actually had a kickball tournament right across in the field, and a lot of people showed up for that. So I have a feeling that summer has officially kicked off in Virginia, and we're not too far from the beach. So any more questions before I go? I have probably about another 10 minutes or so beforehand. I know that's out of the norm, but yeah, for tomorrow for our work camping gig, it's over, like I mentioned before, is in Washington. And we'll do a premiere. We've been doing premieres lately because of the fact of our videos being so far behind. And this is almost a year later from when we actually were there. So we want to be able to talk to people about it. And I feel bad that we're so far behind, but in a way it's a good way. Because we have content. We have so much content to put out. And we're going to be showing all the fun stuff that you can do in Washington. And then by the time the child will be here, we should be pretty much caught up. And then it'll be just normal as you go full-time RVing and so forth. So there's that. And I really thought my stories would be a lot longer today, but this is what you learn. Actually, I do have a question for everybody that's watching. If what are some of the topics you would like for me to cover during these segments? It could be anything, RV related or pregnancy related. Feel free to give me some topics you'd like me to cover, because I want to be able to talk about things that you want to know about rather than what I feel you want to know. I mean, I can get real down and dirty about some things, but I don't think you want to know everything, and so forth. And I also need some volunteers in the future to be my guests for talking about living full-time RVing. All right. Let me see if I have something on here. Oh, hey, our epic RV adventure. Thanks for joining us. We covered pretty much all the topics already. So if you are able to, after this live stream is done, feel free to go back and watch what I covered and so forth, because we're getting towards the end of the session, and would love for you to give any input. I know you both are full-time RVers and so forth, and it may not necessarily cover everything, but it does cover up how Fabian and I begun our journey together and how we eventually made it to deciding why we wanted to stay full-time RVing. Now, I have a feeling that Fabian has a little different perspective of why we actually went full-time RVing and so forth, but I think it's about the same, along the same lines as what I mentioned. And yes, for the generator, yes. We will probably want to start up the generator and probably change the oil and everything. I think it's still in the back of our truck and so forth. So we will definitely have to do that. And then John mentioned, could you please tell Fabian he needs to get to easy starts. Put on your ACs in a pair box with another generator and it will work fine. Okay, I'll let him know. I know he is kind of listening, so maybe he heard me say that and so forth. And if he has any more questions, I'll have him reach out to you. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody that has come in. We have 5 people currently watching. I knew it would be not everybody's topic per se on wanting to watch what we talked about. But it's just something that I wanted to vlog about. Definitely as the pregnancy goes along longer and so forth. I would love to show you some of the photos Fabian takes weekly of 5 weeks and onward. And you can really see the difference of what I looked at 5 weeks compared to what I look like now. Big difference. And I'm not even halfway there yet. So I can just imagine what I'm going to look like at like 40 weeks. It's going to be interesting how big I get. Mom said he can hook up the generator so I can have AC in a tent. You just mentioned that you're going to have an RV. Now you want a tent. Which one? Just kidding. I love you. And actually, I don't know if you really want to go tent camping. But speaking of tent camping, as season 4 progresses, you may or may not see us tenting. That's a new experience that happened in Washington. For all you that are watching, all 5 of y'all, thank you to learn something. We're not going to put the baby in a tent, Mom. No. No. Not today, not tomorrow. Maybe when he's a teenager like I did back in the backyard. But anyways, I want to say thank you again. Next week, like I mentioned in the beginning, next week we will be talking about the first trimester, weeks 1 through 12, and some of the transitions that we had to do. One of the reasons why we took so long to tell everybody. And planning for the next steps. We have started to receive some of our gifts from our registry. We have an Amazon registry and also a Walmart registry. And we started receiving some gifts from our friends and family. So that's kind of exciting. And maybe I'll start showing you some of that as we progress along the couple of weeks. And if you know anybody that'd be a perfect person to be a guest, feel free to let them know to come join me on Saturday nights, 7:30 Eastern, and we'll just go from there. And I don't think there's anything else that I have to really discuss. I appreciate you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week. And make sure that you keep proceeding onward in your adventures. All right. Bye-bye.